Light spoilers ahead, I'll be showing some story bits. I'm ready to review Dune Awakening after a whopping 250 hours playtime. It's definitely rough around the edges, but I think it's mostly great. I've been surviving the harsh landscapes of Dune, building and decorating my own base of operations, built a kart racing track with my leftover resources, kind of shocked how good the story and cinematics are,
Never let your whims interfere with your duty.
tackled some of the harder encounters in the deep desert, and there were plenty of close calls with giant sandworms. Ugh. What the f***? This is a survival crafting game, lots of hardcore elements, but in its own words it's also an RPG and massively multiplayer. And I've got to admit, this came to be a really spicy combination of genres that I've not really experienced before.
You know the old saying, the spice must flow.
Welcome to my estate. We've got everything you could ever need, a racetrack, and even a sandworm feeding chamber, where I lure in fresh victims like this guy, then sacrifice them to worms. So, how did I reach this point and acquire all these riches? How did I gather all this spice? Well, let's start at the very beginning of my Dune Awakening adventure. The character creator. It's decent, it does the job. You can play a regular human or a more white-toned Harlequin. I really wanted to make a fat ass like Baron Harkonnen in the movies. I think it's so cool how he just floats around, but sadly, there's no fat slider. Instead, I've made myself, but I do wish there were a few more hair options. Once you've designed your character, the RPG elements kick in. You're interviewed by the Reverend Mother, and you'll get to choose your backstory.
I will sift your words for lies.
These options unlock some unique dialogue choices when you're talking to people later on. Nothing game-changing, but appreciated. You'll also get to select your starting class: Trooper, Swordmaster, Bene Gesserit, and Mentat. I went Mentat with its recon and turret abilities. Based on the Dune books, but aesthetically designed after the recent Dune movies and set in an alternative reality. We've got one primary goal.
Find the Fremen. Wake the sleeper.
We crash land in Dune's Haga Basin and get a crash course in how to survive. You generally want to stick to the more rocky landscapes. Now that's because, well, you see these more open stretches of Dune? They're sandworm territory. And they can detect your footsteps from miles away. And they're also pretty hungry. If you make it to the rocky islands, then the worms can't reach you and they'll back off. Me and my friends had to cross over these open bits to find a cool place to build our bases. It's genuinely terrifying because if one of these sandworms gobbles you up, they'll take you for all you have. It'll eat all your inventory, equipment, and even your vehicle if you're driving one. All your stuff is deleted from the game, setting you back hours.
When the worm comes for you, he takes all that you have.
So sandworms are a major element of Dune Awakening, and hearing how they function and how hardcore this is, I think you'll instantly know if this is the kind of game you want to play or avoid. It really is heart-stopping when a sandworm comes for you and you're not sure if you're going to make it. You can feel the adrenaline kicking in because there are huge consequences to getting eaten. If sandworms weren't bad enough, there's also deadly sandstorms. You'll need to find shelter to wait for storms to pass. Dune functions on servers and sub-servers called Sietches, and just make sure you're on the same one as your friends. You can even make guilds. We're the Spice Boys. This is an MMO, you're gonna come across other players, you're on the same side, but there are some designated player versus player areas like shipwrecks. The occasional story quest will have you venturing into these shipwrecks where you can be attacked by other players. But in my 250 hours of playtime, I only ever encountered one player in these shipwrecks. But the fact that these are PvP flagged areas really puts you on edge when you're exploring these abandoned shipwrecks, sometimes in the dark. Hey, if you're a huge fan of RPGs, consider subbing to Bytes or liking the video for more content like this. Cover lots of RPGs, you might like my Final Fantasy series, where I'm replaying them all and ranking them against each other as I go. Thank you.
Now let's get to work.
Okay, there's one major survival element or resource. Water. You don't need to eat, sleep or anything like that, you just need to stay hydrated with water. Early on, your main source of water is from plants, which are generally all over the place. Bit annoying staying hydrated early on, but the more you play, the more sources of water you can unlock, and eventually you'll have water on tap. This is a bit of a trend with a lot of things in Dune Awakening. You'll progress and find ways to be more efficient at everything you do. It's a really satisfying feeling. Building system is actually pretty good. You'll have to mine materials, then build your base piece by piece. You get experience points from doing almost anything, and when you level up or find intel in the game world, you can then spend your research points on unlocking new things to build and craft. And fast forward to my finished base, you really can do quite a lot with the building system. It's a little bit like Minecraft, just don't build too close to the open sand, or this happens. There's also a climbing system, which to be honest is very janky. But once you've fabricated a bit of equipment or leveled up and unlocked new abilities, like the Shigawaya Claw, the climbing dynamic completely changes with gravity jumping and grapple hooking. It starts off terrible, but you can make it really cool. Eventually you'll come across little trade posts that function as little hubs where you can meet other players. There are a few vendors. You can also pick up contracts, which are little side quests that function like fetch quests. And this is where I met the Trooper class trainer. So even though I started as a Mentat, I can still find trainers for the other classes, and their questlines will unlock alternative class skill trees and abilities. There's even a planetology trainer that unlocks a completely new class that wasn't even an option at the start of the game.
I promised you more planetology training, yes?
You earn skill points from leveling up, and I can ultimately make my own custom build. Cherry pick what I want from each class, and specialise my character the way I want. Once I had unlocked everything, my personal build went a bit like this. First off, gotta have the Bindu sprint ability. Who wouldn't want to run like Sonic the Hedgehog? Brilliant for cutting down travel time or escaping deadly encounters. I've got my trusty Shigawaya Claw, which is extremely helpful for traversing vertical landscapes. But it can also be used in combat to pull enemies towards you and stagger them for a few seconds. And there's my Suspenser Blast, which lets me release an explosion of force. Lifesaver against multiple enemies at close range. Abilities are really cool, and there's lots of other abilities as well. My only nitpick is that a lot of them kind of lock you in place, and you can't do anything for a second even after the ability has run its course. You've got 3 ability slots, 3 technique slots which are advanced passives, and there's lots of passive bonuses as well. I like to put my points in anything that makes the game more efficient, like using less fuel, gathering more ores, or making my stuff more durable. Speaking of durability, every time you use something like equipment, tools, or vehicles, they'll take durability damage. You can easily repair these devices, but over time they do take permanent damage, which is marked by this red bar. Ultimately, nothing lasts forever, which is why I really like those passive bonuses that make my stuff last longer. Overall, I'm a big fan of the class customization and skill tree system. Meaningful choices, I can tailor my build to my playstyle, and the class questlines themselves were enjoyable.
Oh, good work, Trooper. I knew I could count on you.
Okay, so at this point we're at the southern quadrant of Haga Basin, and the story or side quests eventually push you further north into a new territory. But one problem. There's a huge open area between us and further north. So I built my first sandbag piece by piece and ventured forth. I talked about this in my first impressions. My shoddy sandbag got caught out by a sandworm and I died and I lost everything including my bike. Uh-oh. This was really frustrating and cost me hours to get back to where I was. First time it happens, you're thrown a bone and offered a free replacement bike. I took it, but it turns out there's an achievement for declining the free bike. So crap. I'm gonna have to make a complete new character and replay the game to get that achievement later on.
Get tough or get dead. Sooner you learn that, the later you'll croak.
But second time round, I made it to the Eastern Vermilius Gap. And this is where I'd set up my proper base that I showed off earlier. After gathering lots of resources, I eventually built my own buggy, and it's really cool. You can customize your vehicle and give them different utilities, like a storage boot, extra passenger seats, boosters, mining lasers or missile launchers. You've only got so many slots, so you'll have to decide what you want, or alternatively have more than one. And when I got the buggy, it kind of progressed the game. It changed how I played. I was now going on these big supply runs where I'd gather loads of resources with its mining laser, and it was really chill listening to classic Dune game soundtracks on the in-game radio. Or alternatively, the latest Harkonnen slave fights.
He's struggling to move. But wait, Maxim. Look.
I needed a new resource, crystals, and that led me to a new location, the Rifts. From above, a gorgeous vista of rocky needles, but below, multi-layered caverns and a hellscape to navigate in the dark. I got used to it, but I'd have to prepare and spend hours on little treks to mine and bring back crystals or complete side quests in that area. Eventually, I accidentally drove my buggy off the cliffsides. Shit. And I learned you don't really take any fall damage. So that became my new strategy for getting around the rifts faster, just driving off cliffs. But those crystals were for my next building project, the Scout Ornithopter. The game really opened up once I took to the skies, and it made navigating those rifts so much easier. The Ornithopter has two flight modes, hover, which you'll primarily use to gain height, and glide mode for speed. So Hacker Basin is quite huge, and if you fly to the edges of the map, you'll come to a world map screen, where you can see other players flying about in real time. Really cool first time seeing this. I took a trip to Dune's two main cities, Arakeen and Harko Village. Very much the kind of cities you'd expect to find in MMORPGs with class trainers, vendors, auction houses and banks. Yeah, banks, where you can pay your weekly taxes for your home.
Keep your distance. We can converse at arm's length.
If you stop paying taxes, you'll lose your home, which is gonna really suck if you take a break from the game, because you'll come back to nothing. It sucks. But at about 100 hours into the game, I'm still following my primary goal of finding the Fremen.
Find the Fremen. Wake the sleeper.
I was still progressing the main story, which led me to these cities, and I was kind of blown away how high quality the story cinematics were. And I was even more blown away when new story-related locations were unlocked on the world map. From huge shipwrecks to a water-shipper's mansion, a huge high-security facility that I had to infiltrate to poison its water supply. It was awesome. But a bit too easy with my Shigawire claw letting me soar over the security. Overall, the main story was great. After major events, it does suddenly end, feeling a bit unfinished without a part 3. I imagine that will come in future DLC or expansions. But I think for the game's box price, I was overall happy with what I've got so far.
Commendable work. Commendable.
I was starting to reach Endgame and I pushed myself into the deep desert, where the next tier of materials and minerals could be found, as well as huge amounts of spice, which translates into a very valuable endgame material. Now, the deep desert works a bit differently. It's a huge expansive map, and the deeper you go, the more dangerous it becomes, with significantly tougher enemies, even more sandworms, and the top chunk of the desert is hostile territory, with full-on player versus player. Every week the deep desert resets and has a randomly generated layout. You need to explore its vast landscapes and find lots of its test sites for lots of good loot. But overall, the end game is a bit disappointing compared to the rest of the game. It's a massive grind for resources. And PvP can be frustrating at times, it's so janky. One thing that really frustrates me is that Dune Awakening launched with Advanced Access. That means players who pay the extra fee get to start playing nearly a whole week before regular players. New servers were added on launch that didn't have any Advanced Access players on, but it's very difficult to find information on which servers these are, and the average player isn't going to be aware of this.
Right, everything.
That said, I did have fun progressing some of the harder test sites, and grouping up with other players to overcome the challenge. I had this one really weird encounter where I'm heading home on the edge between PvP and PvE. Someone takes a pot shot at me, I end up getting caught out in a storm, and I take a lot of damage, but I make it over the safety area where PvP is not allowed. And then for the next 10 minutes, this stranger keeps ramming into my Ornithopter trying to break it, and even trying to get on top of me and lock me down, so I guess a Sandworm would get me. Even though this is not a PvP area, he was trying to get me killed. This guy was a complete douchebag, but karma is a bitch. After he decided to jump on top of my ship to harass me, I dropped him into the line of an oncoming Sandworm. And it turns out players have found other ways to harass others. There's reports of players exploiting bugs, letting them steal things from other players, etc. The game can be quite buggy. It comes with the territory of large-scale survival games, or some MMOs. There are lots of reports of players losing hard-earned items due to bugs. Oh my god. And not just that, there's constantly new patches and updates that completely change things, including the Deep Desert itself. People are annoyed because originally they were promised the Deep Desert would have a lot more PvP. But then a week or two after the game's launched, the developers completely reworked the Deep Desert and cut most of the PvP out of the game. I can completely understand how this would be frustrating for PvPers.
This changes everything.
I want to talk about my journey to 100% completion, because I couldn't actually get 100% achievement completion. I kinda gave up after I realised just how grindy and bullcrap some of the achievements are. Maybe if I do manage to get 100% later down the line, I'll do a video on it. But even 1 month after launch, 3 achievements are still at 0% global completion, which I've never actually seen on Steam before. Getting these achievements would have involved mining a ton of resources by hand. That sucks because that means you can't use a vehicle's mining laser for the achievement. Eliminating 500 rival house troops and cooking 100 rabbits. I occasionally see the odd rabbit while trying to gather spice. Lots of grindy achievements, but hands down my favourite is Staring Contest, which requires you to aggro a Sandworm, escape its grasp and have a staring contest with it. And in terms of playtime, I finished most of the side quests, all of the class quests, and main story at the 120 hour mark. That's when I progressed in the endgame with the Deep Desert, farmed a bit, and continued building up my base, and made a racetrack for the hell of it, pushing me up to the 250 hour mark. Definitely do not recommend going for 100% with this one.
You've heard the expression, the spice must flow.
Alright, time to rank Dune Awakening and see how many petabytes it earned. I think you could possibly consider this to be almost an evolution of the survival crafting genre. All of these new RPG elements make for a really unique experience, but then again, there's kind of unique selling points to a lot of the big survival games already. I do really like the RPG elements. I think the customization with the skill trees and unlocking new stuff through class trainer questlines is really awesome. I think Awakening really nails the sense of progression. Just when you're starting to get a little bit tired, there's some kind of new system introduced that keeps things feeling fresh. From upgrading your base, new tools, or building new vehicles, it completely changes your perspective and opens up the world. Kinda shocked how good the story and cinematics were inside a survival crafting game. Had a lot of fun building my own personal base and decorating it. Definitely rough around the edges, lots of jank and little bugs, reports of people losing valuable items to bugs. Can't say I experienced losing anything myself, but those bugs are out there. And it's the endgame where things start to fade. Do you really want to engage in PvP with so much to lose when the core fundamentals are so janky at times? Ultimately, it's a true hardcore survival experience. You're gonna get eaten by a sandworm, and you're gonna lose potentially hours of progress. You have to be aware of that going in. It's a hard one to score. I'm gonna give Dune Awakening 82 petabytes. Potentially could be excellent, but I had a great time. Definitely not gonna be for everyone. Play it if you're big into Dune lore or survival games where you don't mind the hardcore elements and lots of resource gathering. Alright, have a good one.